Shalom, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Rabbi Says, coming to you from the Moral Edge Studios in Beit Shemesh. We're continuing our program of going through the letters of the alphabet, and now we're on the letter F. We're going to be dealing with feminism, favoritism, and fences in Judaism. As usual, I've got Michael here with me to join me to ask the questions, the tough questions.
Cause a lot of trouble.
To cause trouble.
It wouldn't be the same.
It gives that a good spice. It gives the program a great spice.
Well, I'm ready for feminism.
Okay, we're going to begin with feminism on that note. And, some people say that feminism is against Judaism, against Orthodox Judaism, but that is incorrect. Some see it as a challenge to Judaism, but others see it as helping to uncover what Judaism already has to offer. People don't realize that. We gave the world feminism and women's rights. We gave the world the idea of the ketubah, the marriage contract, giving a woman rights in marriage, during the marriage, even after the marriage. We were the first to do that. So to say that Judaism has a thing against women or women's rights is absolutely false. Judaism sees women as equal, but different. We have different roles and different obligations, different functions, and we'll see more about that as we talk.
Do you have women approaching you, asking you questions that you can tell by the way they're asking? They're coming from a perspective that women are second-class citizens.
They want to fight. Do I get questions from ladies that seem that they want to fight? Yes, I get that all the time, but I am well-trained, Michael, in diplomacy. I can diffuse most situations very fast, and it ends up working out quite well,
Basically,
actually.
you know how to dance around the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Being diplomatic, it has its advantages, and it solves a lot of problems.
So I'm going to ask you a question. You weren't prepared for this.
Okay.
What issues are women bothered about most that they ask you, it's not fair? Why aren't we? So what are women telling you? What are they bothered about?
So I was prepared for that, Michael. And I have a list of about 10 most common things.
I did not know that.
I have a list of about the 10 most common things that bother women.
That's interesting. Let's start with that.
Okay. Well, first is the public prayer and counting for a minyan. As you know, in the Orthodox Synagogue, only men are counted for the required prayer quorum. If there's 10 men in the congregation in the room, the public prayers can take place. If there's not 10 men, the public prayers cannot take place.
How do you define a man?
Very good. How do you define a man in our day and age?
What is a woman? What is a man?
In our day and age, you sometimes have to be very accurate.
Biological?
It has to be a biological man over 13 years old. And that is the definition of a man in Jewish law.
Sounds simple.
It sounds simple. And by the way, if anyone tries to change their gender, Judaism does not recognize any changing of gender on that note.
Wait a second. G is next week. We'll get to gender change.
Nice idea for next week, perhaps. But what bothers women? You ask me, what do I get from ladies that bothers them the most? Well, they can't be counted for the minyan. They can't lead the service. They can't be ordained. They can't testify in court. The divorce issue. I got a list over here of things that bother women, but we go through them one by one. We'll see it's not as bad or big of an issue that people make it out to be.
So I bet there are a lot of ladies out there in the audience that would like to hear some answers.
So we'll go through them one by one. So public prayer, the public prayer, which includes certain prayers that can only be said in public, including the Torah reading, the Kaddish, and other such prayers require a community. It required the public to be present. And again, that's defined as 10 men. Why not women? Why are women excluded? And the answer is because women have other obligations in Judaism rather than synagogue prayer. Synagogue prayer is something given only to the men. And therefore, it makes a lot of sense that women were not ever in the notes, in the handbook on how to do a synagogue service and what's required and how it takes place and the minimal quorum.
But many women today like to go to synagogue, and although they're sitting separately, they have their own section, but they still enjoy the prayers. They still come and pray. So there's nothing wrong with women wanting to come and be part of the community and pray.
That's correct. We encourage women to come to the synagogue, and women who want to recite the Kaddish and the minyan, according to most approaches, they're entitled to do so. So to say that women are excluded or second class is simply not true. They were never obligated. Exemption is an honor in some.
Well, are women obligated in prayer? Let's.
So very good.
Clarify.
Women are obligated to pray to God every single day, according to most authorities. Whether it's a biblical commandment or rabbinical commandment, women are obligated to pray. It could be a basic prayer. It could be a blessing. It could be a thank you. But ideally, if a woman has the time, she should daven. She should pray the entire morning service and or afternoon service. But most women don't have the time because they're busy with the family. Judaism says that the home, the family is more on the woman's plate, and the prayers and the public is more on the man's plate. Different but equal.
What
but
about
different.
a single girl or a younger girl not married yet?
So it's expected that a single girl has more time on her hands, and she should probably do the formal prayer service every morning, pretty much like a man. Yeah, again, we women are welcome to pray, are encouraged to pray, but we understand they have other responsibilities. And therefore, if they're not able
prayers
to,
of women that were answered, sometimes ladies' prayers are even more from the heart than the man.
Very good. And we have endless examples of prominent women in the Bible who took leadership positions, whose prayers were answered, who served the community. And that was appropriate. Miriam, Devorah, Hannah, Ruth, Esther, prophets and heroines throughout Scripture were women who accomplished great things for the Jewish people. But once again, these women did not have family responsibilities, and they had the ability to dedicate their time to the public, to the needs of the community. Nowadays, or at least, traditionally, historically, women were more occupied with the home, the domestic tranquility, raising the children, cleaning, cooking, laundry.
Well, that doesn't sound like a feminist type of approach.
That's the way society ran for Jews and non-Jews.
I'm not defending feminists, but that doesn't sound like Judaism is pro-feminist if women's job is relegated primarily to the home.
It depends how you define feminism. Okay. If feminism means the belief that women possess equal dignity, equal worth, equal moral value, then this is deeply rooted in Judaism. That is Judaism. But if feminism teaches that every religious role must be identical, regardless of gender, sorry, that is not Jewish feminism. So, and I'm sure, by the way, we're not the only ones, the only religious community or any social community that has a definition of what feminism is. Again, that's our definition, that we have equal dignity, equal worth, equal moral value. But that every job is identical for the genders, no, that's not what we consider to be feminism. Let's go to another one. Now, similar to the minyan issue, women being counted for the quorum, is leading the service. So women do not lead the service for several reasons. One is public prayer is not one of their responsibilities. They are exempt from public prayer. And two is modesty issues, similar to the one I get, we'll talk about. Why is there separate seating in the synagogue? Why do I have to be behind a wall? The ladies ask. But again, this has nothing to do with equality or feminism or not, either of the above, but rather it's our sense of modesty. We have a description of what is defined as modesty in the synagogue, in the Jewish community. And a woman being on the stage in front of men, giving a performance of sorts, is considered to be immodest from a Jewish perspective. Not that it's criminal, not that it's, obscene, but we have our sense of modesty that many people will agree or disagree with. How we dress, men and women. That's our belief. Women should wear loose-fitting clothing, should wear skirts and dresses, and not pants, certainly not shorts. And again, is a woman who wears shorts obscene? Is it a horrible way of dressing? No, not necessarily. I'm not knocking it, but we have our standards. We have our traditions, our customs. That's what goes. And leading services, women reading the Torah, singing the tunes of the Torah and leading the service. These things we feel are not ideal for
specifically because it's in front of men. If there was a service that was just female, they're not obligated, like you say, in public prayer. But if a woman wanted to get up and start leading a prayer for other women, that's completely fine.
So it depends. A woman cannot have a minyan. Women cannot have a minyan. As I mentioned earlier, a minyan is defined as 10 men over 13. If you have 10 women over 13, over 12, over 13, they cannot do the Kaddish or the Torah reading.
Correct, but they could still pray together.
They can say Tehillim, Psalms, they can say prayers of this and that, but they can't have a formal prayer service. They are exempt from the formal prayer service. When you're exempt from something in Judaism, very often you can't even participate if you wanted to. Depends on what. I'll give you another example. The tefillin, the black boxes that men wear on the weekday mornings during prayers. Women can't wear that even if they wanted to. Again, that's an exemption that excludes them from that. There are
examples of some women in the Talmud that did wear tefillin.
So you mentioned women in the Talmud. I think it's post-Talmudic, by the way. It wasn't in the Talmud. Women wearing tefillin is post-Talmudic. Talk about Rashi's daughters and things like that. And then, by the way, probably never happened. These are nice legends and tales of righteous women. Probably never happened. It's been shown, it's been shown that probably never took place, never happened. But if it happened or it didn't happen, nowadays the law is...
It wouldn't be a sin to wear tefillin. It's just, it's a commandment that's time relegated because it only applies during the daytime.
Are you a feminist, Michael?
Well, no, I'm just trying to get
Women cannot wear tefillin, Michael.
So tell me why.
Why? Okay. Well, first of all, let me start what they can do. They could wear the talis if they wanted to. They could wear under their garments the tzitzis, the talis katan if they wanted to. Some things they can do, you're correct. But tefillin is a good example of something they cannot do even if they wanted to, even when nobody's looking. And the Ramah says this very clearly in Shulchan Aruch.
What's the reason?
The reason is, there's a few reasons, that tefillin require a clean body. And most women, young women, of course, 2 weeks a month, their body is what's called unclean. Not unclean in a hygienic fashion, but in a spiritual fashion. They're getting their period, and their body is releasing, blood, liquids, and therefore you can't wear tefillin during those days. And if it's tefillin is like this: if it's a mitzvah that can't be done every day, at least in theory, we exempt you completely. In the case of women, at least. So since women would not be able to put on tefillin if they wanted to during their period, they're just exempt the entire month. There's other reasons as well, but that is one of the more widespread, well-known reasons. But that's an example of something that if they wanted to do, they couldn't do. Whereas if they want to shake a lulav or hear the shofar blown on Rosh Hashanah, they're able to do so, even though they're exempt. Women run to the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah to hear the shofar, very commendable, but they're exempt from the shofar. They don't have to.
Right.
So we see that women do get involved in things they don't have to. And on the other hand, let me be a bit critical. There's many women who don't even do what what they're supposed to do, yet they get all, bent out of shape when they're excluded for something. You know what I'm saying? Let's take these, if I may, these clowns, the women of the wall. Right? I call them a bunch of clowns. I think they're a bunch of clowns. Literally, it's a comedy show. Every Rosh Chodesh, they go to the kotel with their Torah scroll and their tefillin, and they make a whole scene, and it's every month the same thing. We're all used to it. It's a game already, and a bit of a joke. But where are they every other day? Why only Rosh Chodesh? They got to wear tefillin and read the Torah. If they were so sincere, let them show up every day at the 7 a.m. service at the kotel and have their Torah and the tefillin. No. You see, it's not always so sincere. These feminists are not always sincere. They just want headlines. They want to be in the news. As they say in Hebrew, kotarot, and motzim kotarot. They want to make noise and be in the news. So this type of attitude is completely disqualified. It's puzzle, as we say. It's illegitimate, and these should be ignored. Let's go to ordination of women. Rabbinic ordination traditionally has been the domain of men, because a rabbi is needed, for example, to perform certain rituals and activities that women cannot do. I'll give you one example. Signing a marriage document, signing a divorce document, and other such family laws require males. That's in the Jewish Code of Jewish Law, and that is a requirement. And therefore, there's no point in women becoming a rabbi if they can't fulfill the duties of a rabbi. Executing a wedding, performing a wedding is generally male-oriented. Therefore, why would a woman become a rabbi if she can't do the rabbinic rules?
What does it mean to be a rabbi anyway? I mean, that's not...
Very good. What does it mean to be a rabbi is a very good question. If a rabbi means teaching Torah, a woman can be a rabbi. And there are great women nowadays who are very God-fearing and very learned, and they do teach Torah. And it's actually, it's growing. The women teaching Torah is growing.
So the title rabbi, it doesn't really mean that. No offense, by the way.
Yeah.
The Rabbi Says.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really mean that much. And a woman is allowed to do what she's allowed to do religiously, following the commandments that she's commanded to, and even the ones that she's not, that she's able to do. She's able to learn Torah. She's able to teach Torah. She's able to do pretty much everything that's appropriate. So like the title, but they get caught up on the title, right? It's like they want the title.
Exactly.
The title doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't allow them to do anything more than if they didn't have the title.
That's true. But I mean, a rabbi would often, historically, stereotypically, traditionally get up in the synagogue and read the Torah and lead services. A woman can't do that. A woman getting up in the synagogue and giving a sermon on a Shabbat morning is a controversial territory, a bit of a gray area. So we don't do it because it's a gray area.
Well, there probably are some synagogues maybe where they would, even Orthodox, maybe modern Orthodox may allow a woman to get up. But that gets also into the idea of the humility of a woman, that a woman is supposed to have more,
modesty, privacy, and not be in the public eye so much.
Right.
But truth be told, let it be known that there are yeshivas nowadays giving women a form of ordination. And there's a few yeshivas doing this. Some I think are silly and ridiculous and illegitimate. But for example, I'm not going to comment pro or con, but let's take a look now at the Yoatzot Halacha program. The Yoatzot Halacha program is a program where they train women to make rulings on issues of marital law. Okay? And they get a certificate. They're not called rabbi. They don't want to be called rabbi, but they get a certificate of proficiency and authority in the laws of marriage. Okay? I personally have interviewed these women, tested these women, examined these women, And they are God-fearing Jews who know these laws better than most rabbis. I kid you not, unless a rabbi, of course, specializes in this area. Okay. But some of these women out of the Yoatzot Halacha program, they are very knowledgeable. I wouldn't want to take them on.
What laws are you talking about? Like family purity?
Purity, a woman's period issues, when she go to the mikvah, a woman having problem with staining and how that affects the halakhic relationship, the marital relationship, and all kinds of things in that area. These women are well trained and they have the authority to answer the questions. I've been very impressed with them. There's other programs like that are not as good. I won't get into names, obviously. And there's the far left program where they're literally ordaining women with rabbi and other similar titles.
In the Orthodox world?
And they call themselves Orthodox. And but they're not really accepted in the Orthodox world. They're a step out already of the Orthodox world. Orthodox has tolerance. We don't have to all be the same, but there's some things you just can't do anymore and say you're Orthodox. And giving a woman a title rabbi is again, it might not be the most sinful, fire and brimstone deserving punishment activity you can do, but it's not within the norms. It's not normative orthodoxy. And therefore, this yeshiva giving women the title rabbi and formal smichas, it's ridiculous. And it's simply not Orthodox anymore. You want to do it, you can do it. You live in a democratic country, do what you want, but don't call it Orthodox. But this group I was mentioning that they only study exclusively the laws of family purity and marital law, I've been very impressed. And if a person goes to these women, these graduates, and gets a ruling from them, they get my respect. So it's not true that women cannot be ordained. These women are ordained and they have the authority to answer questions in a very sensitive area of Jewish law. And that to me is great. And it's very avant-garde. It's up and coming. It shows that women can achieve whatever the Jewish law allows, the halacha allows, women can and should go to those extents and achieve. We spoke about the leading the services. Again, that's a modesty issue, a singing issue. Women generally don't sing in front of men. The services, especially on Shabbat and holidays, has a lot of singing. So women do not.
That's against Jewish law, right? To hear live music from a woman.
Yeah, to hear a woman singing is frowned upon, to say the least, in Jewish law. Certainly if she's singing alone, as a cantor in the synagogue would do. And so therefore, women don't lead services, not because they can't, not because they're not good. I'll give you an example. The Hallel service. In theory, the Hallel service on holidays where we praise God with the chapters of Psalms, there's nothing inherently wrong with a woman singing that, leading that. But to lead that in front of men is very problematic. So that's a whole world of leading services. It just doesn't allow a woman to do it at all times, at all services. And therefore, it's just... women don't do it in the Orthodox world. Same thing with the Torah reading. Another one I get is, how come a woman can't be a witness? How come a woman can't be a witness in Jewish law? First of all, it's not completely true. People confuse witness with giving testimony. And nowadays, for the most part, women can give testimony in a Beit Din, in a court of Jewish law. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have two women in the women's section on a Shabbat morning getting into a fight. They get into a fight, and one lady doesn't like the other lady and throws the cake at the kiddush, throws it at her, and the other lady throws the herring at the other lady, and they get each other's clothes dirty, and who's right, who's wrong, who's paying for the damage, who's paying for the cleaner's bill? There's no men in the ladies section, so if this goes to the Jewish court, who's going to testify? Women who were around, and their testimony would be accepted. Now, being a witness is, Jewish law says women cannot be witnesses. We don't know exactly why, but one of the theories given is that women are very emotional people. And sometimes when you witness something with emotions, it might cloud the...
that's going to get the feminists upset.
Yeah. No, I'll take... Emotional,
I'm just like a man. I can control my emotions.
Let's take an example. God forbid you see a scene. Think of this scene. God forbid it shouldn't happen. But you see a child getting hit by a car. Imagine you have a man on one side of the street and a woman on the other side of the street. Just think in your head what the reactions are going to be. The woman will be tearing herself up, bawling, crying, screaming, and the man will be, oh my, got to call an ambulance. And that's clear. You got to agree that I'm onto something good. That's about the way it works. Women are more emotional people, and it's said to affect their form of witnessing and testimony as a witness. So women generally do not serve as witnesses in Jewish law, but to testify in Jewish courts, they can do that. The Aguna one we kind of accomplished in a previous episode. We spoke about the Aguna, the woman who can't get a divorce because only a man can give a divorce, not a woman. That is simply God's law. That is Torah law. And obviously Torah law is not negotiable. Most rabbinical law is not negotiable. That's another discussion. But the concern that women have, I can't give a divorce, only a man can divorce me. Yeah. Also, a man can only
So
marry.
how do you explain that?
We call it in the Jewish terminology, Gzeras HaKasuv. It's God's law, and it's not negotiable. The Torah is God's law, and God clearly says that a man must divorce the wife cannot divorce the man. And the women who are upset about this, and usually justifiably so, it didn't bother them that at the wedding, the man had to marry her, and she couldn't marry the man. It didn't bother them then, and for the most part. It doesn't bother the women. The women are bothered that when the marriage is not going well and they want to divorce the husband and they can't divorce the husband, they get all angry and bent out of shape.
You have to take it up with God because he's the one that made up the law.
Exactly.
And we know there's a good reason for it, but we don't always understand what that reason is. And that's a big point in Judaism. There are questions that we have that might be really good questions, and they aren't necessarily answers that you're going to like or that you even understand.
That's well said. That's very well said.
We do have to, but there is the case where, let's say, a woman who's stuck, let's say her husband went off to battle, or went off on a trip and hasn't come back in months or even years, and most people assume the husband is dead, although they haven't really seen it, and the woman is stuck because we don't know if he's dead. Yeah. But if another woman saw that this man is actually dead,
very good,
they could testify and it would free up the woman to marry another man.
Great example. That's a great example. A woman's testimony is believed to say that a man is dead and a woman could remarry. Very good catch. Women's Torah study kind of touched upon that. The women could study and get ordained to some extent to have authority, but we're all for advanced Torah studies for women. The lady has the time, she has the brains, bevakasha.
But it wasn't always like that, right? Things in the olden days, right? The women, they didn't really study Torah.
That's correct.
They knew just the basic laws of kashrut, I guess, family purity, keeping Shabbat, things that are very family-oriented. Very good. But they didn't really have a strong understanding of more complicated Jewish law. But that's not the case today.
That's right. They're the Beis Yaakov system, founded by a Sarah Schneerer, whose house I visited this past Hanukkah.
So did I.
Yeah, in Krakow?
Yeah,
we're in Krakow. Yeah. So you got her house? Because not all tours go to her house.
I believe we did.
Yeah, you went up to the apartment building? Yeah, very good. Not all tours get that. Not all tour guides know it. But anyways, so this woman, Sarah Schneerer, came along and says, wait, women are not getting the proper Jewish education. And instead, they're going to the secular education. They're reading the wrong types of novels. They're going to the wrong types of shows. They're getting the wrong type of education. So we got to give them higher education, more advanced education. So it was. The plan was opposed greatly at first. Actually, it's incorrect. They tell you that, her plan was widely accepted and the rabbis fully endorsed it. And no. It took years for the rabbis.
Any type of change in traditional Jewish communities takes decades.
You got it.
Or longer.
But historically, there was no need for advanced education for women. They got everything they needed to from their mothers. Keep in mind that in Ashkenaz, historical Ashkenaz, we were poor. Ashkenazi Jews are poor. What the song goes on, Fiddler on the Roof. At 3, I started Hebrew school. At 10, I learned a trade. They had to go to work as soon as possible. So the boys even only had education, formal education, was about 10 years old. They had to go work to help the family. And the girls, had less, but they got what they needed from the home. But as the 19th and 20th centuries rolled around, things were different, and people rolled up their sleeves and dealt with the problem. And today, more so. Ladies are going to university, and they're learning all kinds of garbage in university. So let them use their brains and their time and their efforts to also advance in Jewish studies as well. So there's not really a big feminist problem in Judaism. Those who have complaints about Judaism and their women's role don't understand Judaism. Because, every society has their code. In one country, you have to go 100 kilometers on the road. And in Germany, you can go unlimited kilometers on the road. The speed, the Autobahn, there's no speed limit. No one seems to be complaining here or there. This is the society we live in, and that's what it is. Nobody likes everything in the society. No one likes all rules in the rules they live in the frame they live in. And Judaism is no different. I love being Jewish. I love being a rabbi. Can I tell you something? The fast days suck. So there's things in Judaism. Tisha B'Av sucks. But, it's part of the package. And the package gives us a meaningful life.
Now, wait a second. That just brings me to ask a question. Because you mentioned fasting, right? So I was having this conversation with my wife. If she's out there listening, I don't know. She's like, because I'm very, I want to say I'm not a rabbi, but, I look at the code of Jewish law. I look in the Mishnah Berurah, and it seems to say quite clearly that women have to fast on even the minor fast days. There are exemptions if a woman is nursing or if a woman is pregnant, or obviously for illnesses. There are exemptions for men for illnesses also. But by and large, the normative halacha seems to be that women have to fast.
100%.
But my wife and a lot of my daughters are like, no, half of the women don't fast. Hasidic women don't fast. These women don't. Not just, she's like, yeah, no, I'm telling you, women don't have to fast. I'm like the bad guy because they're like, I don't know. I just read. I just want you to do what's right. And they say, no, Rabbi Enkin would tell me that I don't have to fast. So I said, no. Sometimes Rabbi Enkin is very makel, is very lenient, but I just have a gut feeling that in this case, he's going to tell you that you have to fast. Was I right or wrong?
You are right,
okay,
Doctor.
I know.
Listen, Gerbitz ladies, fast days coming up in 17 or 20 days from now. You got to make an effort to fast. Yeah, it's true. The Hasidic community has become very lenient with women's fasting under the argument that nowadays women are weaker. Hey, feminists, women are weaker and have to fast. Now they want to fast. Now I wish we're not weaker.
Wait, which way? You can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways, exactly. Judaism is a code, and some of it is less attractive, and some of it's more attractive. But you know what? Follow the Jewish code, because all in all, it's a meaningful lifestyle. Even though some things might suck, but all in all, the ups, the downs, the emotions, the holidays, the observances, the history, the future, it's a meaningful lifestyle. And if it's not perfect, learn to live with it, and you'll have a better life.
How does your wife like fasting? And your daughters?
So my wife does
Honestly.
what she... Yeah, no, my wife does what she can. Usually she can't fast past noon. Legitimately, yeah. Yeah.
You're telling my wife she has to fast?
Your wife is strong and healthy.
Your wife doesn't fast past noon?
Yeah, often.
Oh my gosh.
That's the truth. But again,
the
it's
truth
not because
comes out.
It's not because
she
there's an
doesn't watch
exemption.
this episode.
There's no exemption. But if you're weak, you're weak. Men too, like you said. It's a weakness thing, not a woman's thing. Yeah. So Judaism is perfect. The Torah is perfect. And also sometimes that if something's bothering you, maybe you got to work on yourself. It's not always an equality. It's equal, but different.
Okay, well, I got to decide if I want to show my wife this episode. It was great until that last point. All right, maybe your wife can invite mine over for lunch or something. What does she serve on a fast day?
Yeah,
okay.
Lots of coffee. Yeah. Our next topic to discuss is favoritism in Judaism. And Judaism has much to say about favoritism, Michael. The Torah,
well, you're
Talmud,
my favorite rabbi.
Thank you. That's an honor. The Torah, Talmud, and later Jewish legal codes, ethical codes, repeatedly warn against unfair treatment and partiality. It's bad business. Don't do it. Now, people naturally have close relationships with certain individuals, and Jewish law acknowledges special obligations towards family members and teachers, and we'll get to that in a moment.
Family first.
Family first, especially when it comes to charity. But Judaism seeks to balance human emotions with justice and compassion and integrity. But favoritism has been viewed as a source of conflict throughout history, and fairness and impartiality have been called essential virtues in the Jewish Midos list, attribute list. Let's go right to the best example of favoritism and disaster, and that is the story of Joseph. We know that Jacob loved Joseph more than all his sons, and to show that love, he buys Joseph a special coat. It's been called a coat of many colors. However, we don't exactly know what that coat looked like. Just as a footnote over here, there's only one commentary that says the coat was one of many colors. Most other commentaries say that coat that Jacob gave Joseph was just a fancy coat, a beautiful coat. It might have been pasim, as it says, had lines on it. But the coat of many colors that became the sensational play, there is an opinion like that, but it's a minority opinion, believe it or not. So we don't know what that coat looked like. But what happened? So Jacob shows favoritism to Joseph, and the brothers don't like that. They get angry. And it ends up almost a murder. And then it ends up a kidnapping and a sale and a ransom and a kidnapping. And boom, Joseph's in a jail in Egypt. So you see, favoritism is very, very bad. Even our greatest sage, Jacob, made the error of showing too much favoritism. And we learn from that, as the Talmud says, that Jacob made a mistake worth the value of a garment that led to tragedy and disaster, catastrophe. And we should not be like that. We should not try to show favoritism to one child over there.
That's a beautiful thing about the Torah, that it doesn't hide our sins and things that we've done wrong, because we can learn from that. Look at all the things he did right, but nobody's perfect. And something like that is a lesson we can learn. Look what a disaster could turn out from, give one kid a little more of this, a little more. You don't know what the ramifications of that kid. He couldn't obviously imagine that would basically lead us, the whole Jewish people, into exile. But you don't know the value. A small little thing, you give a kid a little more than the other kid, you don't know where that's going to end up.
Yeah, but that's very true. But you should know that Judaism acknowledges that a parent might like a child one over the other. That's acknowledged and accepted, but don't show it. Keep it to yourself. Let's talk about favoritism among siblings. That was a parent-child relationship. Let's talk about siblings. Isaac liked Esau better, and Rebekah liked Jacob better. And what happened? We have tension, we have deceit, we have theft, we have conflict, we have family division, running away from your life because one liked the other one more than the other. Once again, we can't show favoritism to our children. We can't let siblings show favoritism one to the other. Try to referee this at home if you can, that our siblings, our children amongst themselves will also know to be impartial and to be loving and kind to everyone equally. The Torah goes on. There's tons of examples how favoritism leads to all kinds of conflict and stress and tension.
Are you supposed to favor the elder, the Bechor, the firstborn? So any idea?
Yeah, so
you find a lot of times where it's the second child is the favorite child. You find it with Isaac and Yishmael and Yitzchak. Yitzchak was the younger one. Esav and Yaakov. Jacob was the younger one. Even Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim was the young one, and so on and so on. Leah and Rachel. Rachel was the one that was loved.
Interesting. I didn't put any thought into that. It's not for today's program, but that's a very good thought. That's a very interesting thought. But to answer your question, is the firstborn meant to be favored or any special status? So the answer is favoritism, no, status, yes. The firstborn has rights. The firstborn has more rights. I think inheritance law is one of the best examples of that. And a firstborn boy gets double inheritance over all the other siblings. That's not favoritism. That's rights. The Torah gives the firstborn that right. The way you were born, against your will, you get rights. And we learned in a previous episode that the bastard, the mamzer, not his fault he was born out of wedlock, but he has, what's the opposite of rights? Losses? He has disqualifications. I think that's a good disqualifications.
Again, take this up with God. Not everything could be completely understood, and that's the leap of faith. Most things can be analyzed and understood, not everything, and we have to believe it's true, and even if we don't understand it.
We don't understand it. Again, the Torah is perfect. The Torah is true, and not everything has reasons.
But the Torah is not telling us just because a firstborn gets extra rights that we then have to go and favor them in any way other than what the Torah says.
Precisely. That's exactly what
maybe it's even a challenge. The Torah may be challenging us. Maybe that's one of the reasons why the second one, and I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking about it, that it's a challenge that you don't want to show any favoritism to the oldest child. You have to show the second child at least what you're showing to the first child.
Yes, at least in public. Like I said, the Torah acknowledges, Jewish thought acknowledges that a parent will favor a child more. A child's better behaved. A child is more similar in interest than one of the parents. The parent is going to like that child more. That's natural. That's normal. But don't show it. Don't cause problems. Now, there's only one entity, by the way, that doesn't show favoritism, and that's God himself. And God says several times in the Torah, including Deuteronomy 10, chapter 10, verse 17, the Lord your God is a Lord of Lords, a great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no favoritism and accepts no bribes. So God is the only entity that's able to never show favoritism. So once again, you see from here.
Well, he shows the Jewish people favoritism.
That's interesting.
We spoke about the chosen people.
Yeah, but within, let's say within the chosen people, let's make this a little bit easy for viewers.
Okay, all right.
Within the chosen people, everyone is equal in God's eyes. So unlike human beings who may be influenced by wealth and status and appearance and success, relationships, God judges individuals according to their actions, everyone on their own. And we are to imitate God and try to be as impartial as we can.
By the way, just to go back to that point, that's not really the point of today, but there is the issue of the chosen people. And again, it's another thing you can take up with God. God chose the Jewish people for a special status to be his beloved people. I mean, the other nations were offered things, however you want to explain it. But at the end of the day, if you don't like the fact that the Jewish people are the chosen nation because God perhaps favors us, then take it up with God. That's not something that we made up.
That's correct. There are some things that the Torah tells us, and one of them is the Jewish people are chosen people. But that being said, God doesn't have favorites among the nations of the world. Every nation of the world is equal in God's eyes.
If one hates the Jews and one loves the Jews, who do you think God's going to like better?
Of course, no, that's called sinners. Those who go against God's word are called sinners, and God is not going to like the sinners. But amongst the nations of the world, all nations are equal. Another great example of favoritism, or the ban on favoritism in Judaism, is in the courtroom, in the Jewish court of law. A rabbi judge, may not show any favor to any of the litigants, the plaintiff or defendant. Maybe one is more wealthy, one is better dressed, one has more influence, one is more prestigious, influential person. The judge got to treat them both. You can't have one sitting and one standing. They both have to be on equal playing field. I'll give you another good example of not showing favoritism and relating to bribery, which we'll get into now in more detail. And that is, the Talmud gives examples of judges who would disqualify themselves from judging a case because someone did a very small favor for them. Talmud talks about the case of somebody who opened the door, and the rabbi says, thank you. Well, thank you for opening the door for me. What's your name? Where are you going? So I'm going to Rabbi so-and-so courtroom to be heard the case. He says, I'm Rabbi so-and-so. Oh, you just did me a favor. I've got to exclude myself. We'll find you another judge to judge the case. Another case the Talmud gives, same thing. Somebody helped a rabbi cross a bridge. Another example, somebody removed a feather from the rabbi's hat. And the rabbi says, oh, thank you for removing my feather. I didn't know I was dirty. Thank you for taking care of me and helping you get across the shaky bridge. Thank you for helping. What's your name? My name. Where are you going? To Rabbi so-and-so courtroom. I'm Rabbi so-and-so. You did me a favor. I can't judge the case anymore. So that gives a good taste as to how careful we got to be not to show favoritism, not to be suspected of showing favoritism.
Doesn't it say in the Torah God favors orphans and poor people? Does it say shows
the word favor is not there?
Favor.
No, he has more sensitivity.
Yeah, okay.
He has more sensitivity to those who are have unfortunate circumstances.
And that's an important distinction to make. Showing sensitivity to people doesn't mean you favor them. It just means their needs are greater, and you're being sensitive to their needs. It doesn't mean you favor them.
Exactly.
So
That's very well said.
If there's a court case between a wealthy person and a poor person, right, that's where it becomes very challenging, because you might want to be, I want to be sensitive to the poor person. He doesn't have any money. This guy, but at the end of the day, that's completely unfair. That's where sensitivity can lead you down the wrong path, because you have to be 100% fair. Now, when it comes to maybe giving charity, obviously you want to be more sensitive to the poor person or to the person that might need it more. But when you're adjudicating a case of law, if the poor person stole from the rich person, you don't have any sympathy for that. You can maybe understand why he did it, but that doesn't mean in any way that you should be more lenient with it.
That's right. 100% right. You brought up a point, you brought up something really good. I don't think you realize how good it was what you just brought up. But, a parent has many children, and children have different needs. And sometimes a children needs more than another child. And that appears to be favoritism, but it's not favoritism. It's taking care of the child according to his needs. And that's an important point that children have to realize.
Right. It's hard for kids to, maybe they're not mature enough to understand a sibling is, they probably do understand it, but still, if a sibling is getting more attention, they're probably going to be jealous. That's normal. But they also have to understand that there's a reason for it. It's not because the parent loves the other kid better.
Exactly.
The other kid's probably needier.
Exactly. Teachers in the classroom have different ways of handling and teaching different students, because every student is different. And their needs are different. Employees. Their needs are different. Everyone's different. You got to make everyone happy. It's not showing favoritism by extending, a bit of a leniency or a favor to one over the other.
Let me ask you a tough question.
Okay.
Employees, right? There's a man and a woman. They're both doing the same job. The man needs to earn more money because his wife is not able to work. He has a very, very large family, and to get by, he needs more money. The woman is married to a wealthy man. She doesn't really need the work, but, she's good at it. She wants to work. Her husband is providing very fine for the entire family. Should they get the same? Would it be okay to pay the man more for the same work because the needs of his family are greater?
It's absolutely okay. It's absolutely permissible.
Really?
Of course.
That's not favoritism?
Of course. No, it's not favoritism. First of all, we have a rule in Jewish monetary law that anything agreed between two parties is binding. So you have a boss, we'll call him Reuven, and Reuven hires Shimon, and Reuven hires Leah. And privately, Reuven tells Shimon, I'm going to pay you X, Y, and Z for your work. Do you agree to that salary? I agree to that salary. Goes to Leah, and another private conversation. Leah, same work as Shimon, I'm going to pay you X, Y, and Z. She could accept it or not accept it.
I know, but is it right for the employer to do that? It's a tough question.
It's a tough question. The employer is entitled to do that.
I'm not saying this is a Jewish law question.
Right.
It's more of a, we're on moral edge, so we can talk about edgy things. I mean, it's not something a woman's probably going to want to hear. And I don't know myself. I mean, part of me says it's not right. It's, that she's doing the same job. She's just as qualified. She's doing the same exact work as him. Why should she be penalized? She doesn't need the money. All right. So then, but she wants to, then don't hire her. I mean, but if you hired her, she deserves the same salary as the man.
I think it's an incorrect statement to suggest that employees doing the same jobs in different companies are all getting the same salary when they're doing
same company.
So in the same company.
Same company.
You have a dozen employees working on programming.
They're all doing the same job.
I don't think they're all getting the same salary.
They are not?
I don't think so.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Why?
Because that's the way the world runs. That's the way that's society standards.
If you were the boss, though, would you initiate, this man needs more? His family needs more than this woman's family.
So I can choose to give him more or less. I can choose to give her more or less as a boss. It depends on my financial situation. How good is the business going?
No.
Depends on other things as well.
You have enough money to pay everybody. You don't want to answer the question. It's okay. I'm not sure.
I'm too much of a halachist, of a legal mind, and halacha allows it. Sometimes halacha and ethics aren't on the same page. Sometimes. But you're saying it might be an ethical problem to pay different salaries. I'm not sure that's true.
Is that in the world of halacha at all?
Sure, monetary law, civil law.
No, but I'm saying this scenario where a man, he's a religious man, a Torah-fearing Jew.
Yes.
He's offering the same job to a man and a woman. Is that in the halachic realm for him to have to decide if it's halachically okay to pay the man more, or that's not in the realm of halacha?
It is in the realm of halacha, and halacha permits it. That any agreement between two people is going to be binding, even though the same contract with another party, same boss, is different rules and regulations and salary. So that's acceptable
it's like a personal decision of the employer.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no right or wrong according to Jewish law. Whatever he decides is okay.
Exactly. He wants to be generous and give out more money than he otherwise planned, but you're welcome to do so.
Only to one of the employees. Yeah. That's still okay.
Yeah.
Women aren't going to like that so much, but it's okay.
It's not a woman thing. Okay. It's also a man thing. And it also goes by age.
Oh, this is not the feminine. We're not doing feminism. What are we doing? I thought we were still on feminism.
You see, things touch cross borders.
Okay. All right, well, listen, I thought I'd just give you a hard time today.
It's good. Kol t'nai b'mamun kayam. Any agreement in financial law and Jewish law is binding.
Okay, you're fired.
Okay.
Just joking.
So let's go. Let's continue over here with charity and priorities. So Jewish law gives priorities, preferences in charitable giving. Your family comes first. The poor of your city comes first. After that, the poor of the land of Israel come first. Is that favoritism, or is that just our sense of propriety? What's correct? Responsibility and priority, exactly. Favoritism should not be confused with responsibility, and responsibility should not be confused with favoritism, and many people do. So that's exactly right. We have to stand for those who are older. We have to stand for those who are wiser. Is that favoritism? No. This is a proper Jewish ethic and behavior that you have to stand up for certain people. Certain people get more respect. The Kohen gets more respect than other people. So Judaism, again, it's different but equal but different. It's not favoritism. It's our way of doing things. It's our tradition. And it shouldn't be considered to be favoritism. It's propriety.
Let me ask you another tough question. What if there's a poor man from your city, but there's a much poorer man from another city, and you only have X amount to give? The amount you can give will be able to help one person. If you split it, it's not going to really be enough to help anybody. Should you give it to the poor person from your city, or the person who's really destitute, much poorer from another city?
So if the person in your city is qualified as destitute and poor, you should give them.
Even if he's not as poor as someone else.
That's correct.
It's not like but
as long as he hit the bar of being poor, that's the category. He's poor. The poor of your city come first.
What do you know what that bar is? What is the bar for being poor?
Okay, very good.
Is it the same today as it was in the old days?
Yeah, the definition is the same. So we have poor and we have destitute in Jewish law. Poor is someone who doesn't have, I hope I get the definitions right.
Enough food for a couple of meals, something like that?
Cannot support himself. Someone who cannot support his basic needs is poor. Someone who is suffering because of a lack of basic needs is destitute. If I think I got those definitions correctly, I could look them up quickly if we needed to, but I believe I got those definitions somewhat accurate. And a person who's poor of the city comes first over a destitute in another city, because the assumption is the rich in that city will support
else will
him.
Take care
exactly.
of them. Right. Okay.
Yeah, but again, charity has we have a totem pole, and it's not favoritism; it's our propriety. It's where we put our emphasis and our priorities. Favoritism is not priority. It should also not be confused with that as well. And I mentioned that Judaism acknowledges that it's human nature to like something or someone over another, but be careful how you handle it.
Can you have a favorite mitzvah, a favorite holiday, a favorite Jewish practice?
You can.
At the expense of, but
not at the expense of. I enjoy, Rosh Hashanah.
What's your favorite holiday?
What's my favorite holiday? Everyone's going to run to Purim and say Purim, we're partying, we're drinking, we're having fun. Yeah, that's true. I like Shabbat.
We asked our kids, guess what they picked?
I would say Purim.
No.
Okay.
Guess again.
Simchat Torah.
Nope. One more.
Okay, one more guess. Pesach.
No.
Okay, I give up.
Sukkot.
Oh, really?
They just love. They love.
Not my favorite. I'm happy to perform it,
different
to observe
strokes for different folks.
Exactly.
My kids seem to love.
So you could have a favorite holiday, but you got to make sure you observe them all equally.
But you could be more excited. I mean, that's again human nature.
For sure. I'm not excited when Tisha B'Av comes around. That's a holiday.
I don't think
we're not too exactly. So it's okay to have a favorite holiday and a favorite area of study and a favorite synagogue to go to and a favorite rabbi. Yeah. This is legitimate.
Well, I told everyone who mine was. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. So
and my favorite dressed rabbi too. We didn't mention that on the program for quite a few weeks.
Thank you.
We get a good shot of the tie. The shirt,
thank you.
Everything impeccable.
Jacob, I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but Jacob asked God for two things: good food and good clothes. And that's what I live with. Lechem lechol ubeged lilbosh. My car banged up a little bit, my furniture in the house banged up a little bit. Most physical pleasures, materialistic pleasures don't interest me that much. But if I'm going to eat, it's going to be good food. If I'm going to dress, it's going to be good clothes. That's my thing. That's my hang up. But some people,
I go for the food thing. I don't know about the dress.
Yeah,
I mean, compared to you, nobody's in your category. So
thank you. Some people like jeans and a t-shirt, but they want the Ferrari, the BMW. The fancy car doesn't interest me in the least. If I won the lotto, I wouldn't buy a fancy car. Literally, doesn't interest me in the least. So different strokes for different folks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're continuing now with fences in Jewish law and Judaism.
What is a fence?
Very good. So a fence in Jewish law is usually a rabbinical enactment that was enacted in order to ensure biblical law doesn't come to be violated. And that is very important. Just like a person often puts a fence around something valuable to protect it. You put it into a safe, it doesn't get stolen or dirtied. That's what the rabbis did. There's nothing more valuable for a Jew than the Torah. And we want to make sure we don't violate the Torah, God's law. So they put fences, a safe, a vault, literal fences to ensure that we don't make a mistake. You put a fence around a swimming pool that nobody should drown. You put a fence on a roof that nobody should fall. So you put a fence around the Torah that no one should sin. So, and this is in the Torah itself. The Torah tells us in Leviticus chapter 18:30 that you shall guard my commandments. And the rabbis explain that guarding means these fences that distance ourselves, to distance us from possibly transgressing the Torah.
So does that mean that the fences, which are essentially rabbinic enactments, have the weight of Torah enactments?
Very good. That's a very good point you're bringing up, and it's worth some elaboration. An Orthodox Jew believes that rabbinical law is on the equal authority as Torah law. Of course, if you have to violate one, the rabbinic law or the biblical law, you violate the rabbinic law. But the Torah tells us in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 11, that whatever the rabbis give us, we have to follow as if it was given by the Torah itself. So yes, there is tremendous weight around these enactments. Within the enactments, there's different levels. There's different levels. You can't compare an enactment of a Sabbath restriction versus the enactment to observe Purim and Hanukkah. Purim and Hanukkah are rabbinical enactments, and no Orthodox Jew would think of not observing Hanukkah because it's only rabbinic. So as you see, we take rabbinic enactments very seriously. And enactments themselves are found in the Torah. In the first pages of the Torah, we have Adam and Eve. And God said, don't eat from the fruit. But was it Eve who said, we can't even touch the tree. Not just eat from the tree, can't even touch the tree.
Didn't work out too well.
It didn't work out. That's an example of fence that didn't go properly because that was before rabbinic law. There were no rabbinic law during the era of Adam and Eve. Now, not only does the Torah tell us that we have fences, we need fences, the rabbi should enact fences, but the Mishnah also tells us in Pirkei Avot, in the Ethics of the Fathers, to make a fence around the Torah to, again, ensure that we don't violate Torah. Rabbinic law does not replace Torah. It enhances it. It protects it. Let me give you some examples of rabbinic law and offenses and enactments. Let's go with Shabbat. Now, Shabbat, we have this enactment called Muktzeh. Muktzeh means things that can't be touched. On Shabbat, anything that can't be used on Shabbat can't be touched as well. And the Muktzeh enactment is actually an example of one of the more severe rabbinical enactments. And the rabbis enacted it because if you were able to touch things, you might come to violate Shabbat. You know, if you're allowed to fiddle with a pen or pencil, you might come to accidentally write on Shabbat, which is an extreme violation of Shabbat. Writing is one of the...
Makes a lot of sense.
So the rabbis enacted Muktzeh. And again, Muktzeh is the ban on touching anything that can't be used on Shabbat, lest by touching it, you use it and you violate Shabbat with that. Another example of the Muktzeh is money. You're not allowed to touch money because money is so associated with business and, buying and selling. And so the rabbis feared that if you were allowed to touch money, you might come to, slip a 50 to someone in shul, in the synagogue, and maybe get yourself a business deal for after Shabbat. Not allowed. Another fence. We have a lot in the world of kosher between milk and meat. That's one that we have tremendous amount of fences, perhaps more than any other area of law.
Well, Passover also.
Y'all get Passover. It's on the notes. Yeah, Passover is in the notes over here as well. But when it comes to kosher, we're not allowed to mix milk and meat. The Torah says 3 times, don't mix milk and meat. And that's pretty extreme. 3 times, most mitzvahs are given once. 3 times are very significant. So the rabbis took what could be called extreme measures to ensure we never come to violate the ban on milk and meat. And one example that everyone's familiar with is most Jews wait 6 hours after eating meat before eating milk. Wow. That's a fence. Having separate dishes for milk and meat, that's a fence. Making sure bread never has any milk or meat products in it is another fence because bread is used at all meals. We don't want to accidentally use the bread with the milk ingredients at the meal with the meat ingredients and so on.
Is that an actual rabbinic law? You can't bake bread with milk?
Or meat, that's correct. It's its own chapter, in fact, in the Code of Jewish Law, that bread must be parv. Bread must not have
What if you did by accident? So, are you allowed to eat it?
That's a very good question. You are allowed to make bread dairy or bread meaty if you make it a very odd size or a very small amount. So odd size or odd shape. So that's allowed because the odd shape will alert diners immediately. So this bread is different. They'll ask the question, is it dairy? Is it meaty? Also, bread with cheese sticking out of it, that would be acceptable as well because it could be easily identifiable as being dairy.
I seem to remember in the old days when before everyone, probably before your time even, not everyone was looking for the OUs. You were trying to just read the ingredients.
That's right.
If the ingredients are good, it's good. For some reason, I remember Wonder Bread being dairy. Not that it had a kosher certification anyway, but I'm talking in the days when people weren't so fussy with kosher certification. They just wanted to eat things where the ingredients were kosher. But there was some issue with Wonder Bread being made with milk, and there was even though the ingredients were kosher, there was some problem.
That's a huge problem, as we're learning right now. I mean, I didn't grow up keeping kosher, and I ate Wonder Bread not caring what was in it at all.
I hope not with a salami sandwich.
Who knows? I wasn't even kosher in the first place. So it was a non-issue for me. But bread cannot be dairy. If bread was made dairy, it cannot be eaten. Cannot be eaten. That means if a person added milk to the dough and they made a nice bread, not an odd size, not an odd shape, not a tiny amount, but a person made regular dough, and someone says, "What are you doing? I see you put dairy in the bread and now you baked it." It goes in the garbage. It goes in the garbage. It's not kosher. And this is an enactment.
It's not kosher. It's just you're not permitted to eat it.
Yeah. Okay. Not kosher, not permitted to eat it, I think goes pretty much synonymous. But okay, I guess there could be a technical.
Kosher really is what the Torah defines as kosher.
And the rabbis.
The rabbis are telling you not to eat it. They're not telling you it's not kosher. It could be semantics here.
Okay.
It's not permissible to eat.
But the rabbis did make kosher enactments that are not found in the Torah. For example, the rabbis forbade cheese made by non-Jews. Even though every ingredient is kosher, if a non-Jew makes cheese, you can't eat that cheese.
Why?
Why? We were worried that the non-Jews were using animal rennet. meat, right? In the cheese. That's a big violation.
Well, there's a concern there. Okay.
So the rabbis enacted to ensure that we can never make a mistake of having meat products in our cheese, that a Jew has to be the one to add the rennet, the emulsifier, the coagulant, what right word is, that hardens the cheese. Another example the rabbis enacted is we cannot drink wine. Most wines that were poured by a non-Jew. Milk by a non-Jew is somewhat gray area problematic.
Why is that?
The rabbis were worried that they might mix in the camel milk and other non-kosher milks in the cow milk, rendering it non-kosher. So the rabbis made a requirement.
That doesn't apply today, really, though, does it?
So
there's no camels on dairy farms. So, I've seen. I mean, I don't.
So as a general rule, it's funny you mentioned that.
Maybe in Saudi Arabia, I don't know. I haven't seen any camels on dairy farms.
So there are non-kosher animals on dairy farms.
Pigs.
There are, yes, yeah, and other non-kosher animals. And the rabbis made an enactment that a Jew must supervise the milking of a cow, of the milk. However, there are other great rabbis that say this is no longer needed nowadays because the government supervision, the government controls that ensures that it's only cow milk. You get what you pay for. It says on the box in the carton, cow milk. It's cow milk. So
and you can rely on that.
Yeah. So
that brings in the whole Chalav Yisrael.
Exactly. We'll have to do on the C's or milk, Chalav. Okay. I don't know what's going to be. But
tell everybody quickly what that is for people that don't know.
So Chalav Yisrael means Jewish supervised milk. And as I mentioned, drinking milk, using milk and dairy that was watched by a Jew or even milked by a Jew is a rabbinical enactment, a very important rabbinical enactment. And in fact, those who are lenient are actually being lenient. They're not being, the ones who keep the Chalav Yisrael are not being strict. The ones who have the Chalav Stam are being lenient. The default, the Jewish default is to only use milk that was supervised by a Jew. There is a leniency to allow milk milked by a non-Jew if it's in a country where the government supervises the milk, which is most of North America and the European Union. So that is the Chalav Yisrael thing.
What is your recommendation? Someone who's becoming kosher, should they only drink Jewish supervised milk or just go for the standard because we know it's from a cow?
You're putting me on the spot over because I got to confess to our viewers that I eat the OUD, I eat the non-Chalav Yisrael milk, but it's not something I'm proud of necessarily. There's room for improvement. I know a good rabbi they should maybe speak to. We'll try to get you back on track. Maybe, but I have this one Yetzer Hara for the dairy milk chocolate bar, the Cadbury. That is, if it wasn't for that, I'd keep Chalav Yisrael.
What about Haagen-Dazs?
Nah, I can go without it. Nah, go without it. It's the dairy milk. No, on the whole, I'm only having Chalav Yisrael, but I do cheat. I do cheat. That's the truth. However, it is very, very commendable for those who can to only have the Chalav Yisrael. That is very commendable. And like I said, the default is to have a Chalav Yisrael. Those who keep Chalav Yisrael are not being more strict. It's those who have, like me, the non-Chalav Yisrael are being more lenient. It's an important point. And again, these are all enactments. They wanted supervised milk to ensure that the milk was kosher. Supervised cheese.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Practice what you preach?
Yeah, no, I preach.
I'm joking. Yeah. I'm joking.
Okay, another one example is yichud. Men and women are not to be alone together, lest it lead to all kinds of transgressions. That's an important enactment. For the most part, it's rabbinic. Some of it's biblical, but the idea might be more rabbinic and it's extended to all kinds of different combinations of men and women relationships. That
are not married, presumably.
Or two people are married not to each other.
Not to each other, right, okay.
So again, we have the yichud. There was one of these evangelists, I think it was, his face is in front of me, Billy Graham. So there's a story that goes like this. How true the story is, I don't know. The story goes like this. They said to Billy Graham before he died a very old man. And he said, you know what? There's so many evangelical preachers. They got caught in this naughtiness. They got caught in that problem with that lady and that lady. Your record is squeaky clean. He said, you know why? Yeah, because the Jews have something called yichud, which I followed my entire life.
Oh, really?
I was never alone with a woman who wasn't my wife.
Interesting.
So that's something we should strive to.
I think, didn't Mike Pence say something like that?
Yeah.
I remember something about him, that he was careful not to... I heard a story with women that Graham. Not as well. Yeah, I remember hearing that.
But that's a secret. Never be alone with a woman who's not your wife, and you won't come to sin in these areas. Yichud, another one. Now, I want to bring also to viewers' attention is sometimes we can make our own enactments upon ourselves, and that's the idea of the Nazirite, the Nazir. The Nazir is a person who wants to put more fences on himself to help him become a better Jew, a better person. So the Nazirite, for example, is not allowed to have any wine or grape products. And the Torah allows us to have wine or grape product. But this is a man or a woman who wants to increase his level of holiness and connection to God and detachment from the material world. He'd become a Nazarite. So we see, what's my point? My point is that it's not just rabbinical fences, but a person give himself his own fences if he feels he needs it to get closer to God. But we can criticize excessive fences. People like to criticize.
That can be dangerous too.
Which thing could be dangerous?
Adding on fences that aren't necessary.
It could be dangerous.
Because if you fail, it makes it harder. It's a harder challenge. And if you fail that because it's so hard, you might say, I'll just give up the whole thing.
Could be. Everyone's different. And if you put personal fences around yourself, don't tell anybody.
You mentioned the idea of with Adam and Eve, and where God said you're not allowed to eat from the fruit, and Eve took it a step further and says you're not even allowed to touch the tree, and God didn't say that. And then when she touched the tree, nothing happened. So she said, "Oh, if I'm allowed to touch the tree, maybe I'm allowed to eat from it," and that's really caused the first sin. So we see there, we got to be careful.
You got to be careful. You got to be crystal clear what's offense and what is the actual law. And keep in mind, again, that Adam and Eve didn't have the great foresight of the rabbis in Jewish law and for the Jewish people on what is appropriate fence and what is not an appropriate fence. You mentioned Passover, by the way. That's another fence. I mean, Passover is one of the strictest areas of kosher law, and we're not allowed to have any bread. And to distance ourselves from all bread products, the Ashkenazi world accepted upon themselves what's called the kitniot, not to eat anything that resembles grain or can be used like grain or was stored with grain. We keep away from all those things as well as a safeguard lest we consume the prohibited grains. Modesty, prayer, holiday observances, full of rabbinical enactments lest we come to sin. What's a good example?
Well, modesty, let's take that. Women, the way women are supposed to dress, keeping their hair covered and covering parts of their body. What does the Torah actually say, and how far have we taken the fences?
So that's a very good question, and it's a bit blurry. You answered that question a bit blurry. The Torah clearly forbids any man or woman to have their what we call private parts exposed. What's defined as a private part is the gray area. Most authorities will rule that the woman's elbow to her shoulder is a private part that must be covered. Most sources say a private part includes the knee and upwards on the woman's leg. Some include a knee to the ankle as well. So there is a bit of a gray area, and there's some wiggle room amongst the Orthodox community, amongst our Orthodox authorities, rabbinical authorities, as to what is required. So there is some wiggle room, and each Orthodox community has their standards. In some communities, it's considered to be abhorrent if a woman's not wearing socks. She's got to wear socks. She's not wearing socks. She's out of the group. She's out of the club. In other communities, as long as your knees are covered, the issue of socks is a non-issue. Open shoes, closed shoes. So these things, there is room for personal taste in the world of modesty, personal opinion, personal preference, communal norms. There is room.
But there are red lines, obviously.
The what we call the private areas, of course, are the red lines. But socks or no socks, could be a person has some leeway for expression, their own personal expression, how they want to dress, how they want to.
This topic needs a lot, It's just
modesty. We get to the M's. We'll get to. But the point is over here with all these fences, we have to understand that. I think you mentioned this, that excessive fences are not good.
What about this one? Mixed swimming.
So mixed swimming is not really a fence. It's actually forbidden according to Jewish laws. Outright
let's
forbidden.
say the women, today, religious women have bathing suits that cover everything, really.
Yeah.
They cover everything. So it's not a question of looking at parts of a woman that you're not allowed to look at, but there is a question of bathing together in a pool. Doesn't mean they're bathing right next to each other, but if they're in the same pool, so is that strictly forbidden?
The Talmud has 4 different passages on mixed swimming, 4 different passages, and according to all 4 passages, what you're suggesting would be forbidden because just bathing with a woman is forbidden. One passage explicitly says, even if everyone's dressed properly, the act of bathing itself is forbidden. So there is no way around the mixed swimming, to allow mixed swimming.
What if it's like an Olympic-sized pool, a massive pool? One side there's a woman, one side there's a man. You can't barely even see the person, but they're technically in the same pool. What about in the ocean? We all swim in the same ocean. So how does that play?
So first of all, your pool comparison, let me share with you this idea that when a woman is going through a period, a husband or wife can't sleep in the same bed. They have to have separate beds. That's why all Orthodox bedrooms have 2 beds. They can't sleep in the same bed, even if the bed is a mile long. because it's called the same bed. So here you have the same pool.
That was a good comparison.
Yeah, that's my expertise, Michael, Jewish law and that kind of thing. But you're
What
regarding
about the same ocean?
The ocean. So there we say if it's not within eyesight, it's allowed, not within eyesight. But mixed swimming is really, I don't know, is it a fence or is it the letter of the law? Again, there's 4 different passages in the Talmud that forbid it. Even going, one of the passages in the Talmud that I'm mentioning is you can't even go where women are doing the laundry. Because when they did the laundry in the olden days, they go down to the river, they have to lift up their skirt and lift up their sleeves to do the laundry in the river. So even seeing that part of a woman's body was frowned upon. The Talmud says a man can't go there. He's got to go around the long way to get to where he's going and not go by the river where the ladies are pulling up their skirts and pulling up their sleeves. So
why is it that let me just ask, some kosher hotels, the food is glatt kosher, the kosherest food in the world, everything 100%. And yet they have men swimming, separate hour for women swimming, and then what they call family swimming. What does family swimming mean? Any family can join, men, women, everybody. Right. So how does that, is that justified in your eyes?
So the answer is when the hotels give the certification, the kosher certification, it's on the food, not the entertainment. Some hotels do have a kashrut, a certificate on the entertainment as well. It does exist. It's a minority. It's hard to find. But the kosher hotels, the certification is on the food only, not the entertainment.
But isn't there a contradiction there?
It doesn't have to be. No, it doesn't have to be a contradiction because don't go to the pool.
You want to provide a proper religious environment for people by providing the best type of kosher food. And also the social environment. You don't want to see women dressed inappropriately. Why would a religious hotel having a religious program allow such a thing?
First of all, most of these hotels are not religious hotels. The program comes in, takes over 150 rooms, and they make the kitchen kosher to their standard, and they advertise giving you a kosher hotel. Again, they're advertising, we're certifying the food. Pretend there's no pool. If you don't like the pool arrangement, pretend there's no pool. You don't like the concert, it's a woman singing, don't go to the concert. So I'm not saying it's commendable to have a program where you're attracting Orthodox people, but they're going to be tempted to find the non-Orthodox entertainment. I'm not saying that's commendable, but I'm saying that there's no contradiction and there's no true transgression to go to these hotels.
There probably are some kosher supervision companies and rabbis, mashgichim, that will not even certify the food in a place where they feel it's not
that exists as well. That does exist as well. That if there's not going to be a separate swimming, it's going to be mixed swimming, we won't give you a certificate for the kosher aspect as well. That does exist. And that's somewhat commendable. I think if an organization can come in and also try and ensure an Orthodox environment, that's valuable. I don't condemn those who only go for the kosher food and ignore other considerations, other concerns, but it's very commendable if you're going to try and make and have standards that the entire program has to be kosher, not just the food, also the entertainment. I think that's very good. Listen, Judaism recognizes human weakness. The rabbis recognize human weakness. And the Torah is holy and Torah is special. So rabbis made these fences to ensure we don't come to accidentally give in to our weaknesses and to succumb to sin in all these areas, whether the modesty or the kosher or the Shabbat. And all these things, we have to know that the rabbis did it for our own good, and the rabbis were almost always right. Always right.
Almost.
When it comes to the enactments on Shabbat and these things, I'm going to say they were always right. Again, you mentioned in passing earlier that sometimes the norms change and social norms change.
Yeah,
and
so
perhaps,
that's a big question.
Right, rabbinical
when norms change, does the rabbinic law change?
Might be subject to reevaluation. So they weren't wrong, but there are things that can be reevaluated. I'll give you a good example of that, is that a rabbinic ban against consuming fish and meat together. It's a rabbinic ban that was enacted for health reasons many, many years ago. But a couple hundred years ago, the rabbi said, wait a second, there's nothing wrong with eating fish and meat. So there were rabbis who reevaluated the rabbinic ban, and there were rabbis who lifted the ban. And there's no ban, according to some rabbis, on eating fish and meat together nowadays.
But that's not really accepted.
It's not normative, but it's taken into consideration under, extenuating circumstances.
Purely health reasons?
Purely health reasons.
So that wasn't really a fence. That wasn't protecting
our health. Protecting our health. Rabbinic enactments extend to protecting our health. Absolutely. Talmud is full of all kinds of health tips so we don't get sick. Absolutely.
What about fish and cheese?
Fish and cheese is permitted.
Sephardic Jews don't eat that?
Right. Sephardic Jews don't eat fish and cheese, fish and dairy, but the Code of Jewish Law allows it. The law is Ashkenazim can continue to enjoy their lox and cream cheese, fish and cheese. It's completely allowed. There is an earlier work before the Code of Jewish Law called the Beit Yosef, where he does say you can't have fish and cheese. However, almost unanimously, it's been said to be a printer's error. And it was never a ban on fish and cheese.
What was that also a health? What was the source of that?
It was also a health consideration as well. It was also a health consideration as well. If I'm trying to remember, I don't remember, so don't quote me, folks, on that one.
That's all right.
But again, the earlier sources that do say a ban on fish and dairy, it's been said to be a printer's error.
Okay, so we can have bagels and lox.
And cream cheese without worry.
I'm getting really hungry here. First, the fasting, the not fasting, the wife, the 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about bagels and lox and
we're getting hungry over here.
Meat and fish. And this is, it's already dinner time.
And I think having a meal together is a good fence. We don't get grouchy and cranky. It's a great fence to ensure that everyone's happy.
I'm ready. I'm down.
Okay.
What's for dinner tonight, Rabbi?
We'll go home and we'll see. Okay. Because our wives who stay at home take care of us and take care of the meals.
That's right. Okay. Amazing. Okay. This was great, really.
So thank you for joining us in another episode of the Rabbi Says here at the Moral Edge Studios in Beit Shemesh. Hope you enjoyed our program on the F corresponding words. See you next time for the G corresponding words.
And I'll be there to cause more trouble.
Looking forward. Looking forward.